the old carriageway at Lainshaw. This section runs parallel to the Stewarton to Irvine Road via Torren Yard. At this point, the carriageway overlooks the site of the old chalybeate spring. Chalybeate is mineral-rich water, which in Victorian times was thought to have curative properties, but it was often sold. Houses were even built over them, such as the one that the Montgomery family built down by Salt Well, which is on the road to the Blair Tavern. That has a house built over it. Another example is that at Ardrossan, where a warden sold the water from the well. The chalybeate spring still runs. It's the source of the Chapel Burn that runs down past the Chapel Hill and joins the Alnwick water down at Chapelton. In the distance is the old Lainshaw Mains farm with its very strange tower construction. And these are some of the estate policies, the woodlands of the old Lainshaw house. The Lainshaw carriageway turns a right-angled bend at this point, and here's a very clear view of the ha-ha that was constructed to give uninterrupted views. That is, the wall and the ditch prevent cattle from getting into the woodlands, and there's no fence to interrupt the view for people. This is the Chapel Burn, running under the carriageway, running down from its source at the chalybeate spring. One of the ways in which these wells, springs, became noted as being containing minerals was that birds were attracted to them. The birds required the mineral content for their general health. People noticed this, then discovered that they were mineral rich. As the carriageway continues up the hill through what's known as the Anderson's Plantation, you get this very classic country estate feature, which is these lime trees. These are a lime hybrid. They have this dense growth at the base, which is sacrificial. That is, the trees have developed a system to protect their main bark by producing shoots. These are eaten by the deer, so the deer aren't eating the bark, so the bark's protected. And here we're looking back up again at the ha-ha, which not only runs up parallel to this section of the carriageway, but also runs all the way along the carriageway after its right-angled turn, where the trees are in the distance. So a considerable construction effort to construct all that ditch and that walling. Having left the Anderson Plantation, this section of path that's running down towards the steps down to the Angler's Walk is a bit more diverse, a bit more biodiverse. Unfortunately, we have some rhododendron here, which is just an invasive weed. We also have wood rush. We have the typical limes we've seen all along. Here we have tuberous comfrey, which is a native plant, very much restricted to Scotland. We have the non-native beech trees, the young beech trees, still showing marquescence. That is, they still are carrying their dead leaves from last year, which is a protection against grazing by deer. We also have here some sycamores or Celtic maple, and there's elder plant here, elder shrub, not to be confused with alder. There are also willows in this area as well. And we have the classic red campion plant beginning to develop, very much an indicator of old woodlands. And of course, the ubiquitous but valuable nettle. Also have some wild raspberries here. Woodpecker in the background, and here's a horse chestnut, not native but a fine tree. This is the Annick water, after which this valley, Stewarton, is named. Just at this point on the carriageway you can see the remains of the old bridge abutments. So a bridge ran across here and took the carriageway across into these woods and then down towards Lake Castleton, and then ran back via Peter's Brae past the allotments, then crossed by another bridge close to the Annick Bridge coming into Stewarton. So again, a considerable undertaking to build this carriageway. This is just upstream of the water treatment plant. The course of the carriageway across the other side of the Annick isn't very obvious here because of earth slumping over the years. But the slope, the embankment, can be very clearly seen in the distance here, running down towards Lake Castleton Farm. Also in this section we have some more woodland indicator plants. Here, for instance, is Dog's Mercury, Mercurialis perennis, nestled in amongst the red campions. And sadly here we've got some of the giant hogweed and the Himalayan balsam. These are the remains of the old weir that created a pool or small loch in front of Lainshaw House. So very substantial construction. This is the field or holm, a flat area of land next to the river. There are records of the drainage of this, describing how big ditches were dug and filled first of all with branches. They didn't work terribly well because they rotted, so later stones were used, and finally clay piping, when that was brought into use, was their main drainage facility. Because the name Lainshaw comes from Lang Shaw, which means a long wood, so a long strip of woodland running up beside the Annick water. Having passed the Lainshaw Mansion House, here we have the Lainshaw Home, traditionally the site where the Stewarton Agricultural Show is held every year. The carriageway used to run with a band of trees, lies on this side of the road, with Peter's Brae, woodlands in the background. This bridge here is the site of a sad tragedy that took place some years back, where a young boy apparently was leaning over whilst the river was in flood to grab a football and unfortunately fell in and lost his life. Just making the point about how dangerous rivers can be. There's a dipper just in the background here, standing on the weir on the far bank. A classic bird of rivers. Close here to where the old carriageway crossed over by a bridge and run in front of the Lainshaw gatehouses. You can see the old Lainshaw viaduct in the background. Below it there used to be a mill that was famous for having a tree growing out the chimney. Here are the allotments. Behind us in the woods here there are the foundations of buildings constructed by the army when they took over Lainshaw during the Second World War. So Daverdale Avenue lies above. Here's the Alnwick Bridge with the Lainshaw Viaduct in the background. Just to the right is a little arch where the mill race, or lathe from the mill, rejoined the river. Here are the abutments by which the carriageway finally crossed onto this side of the river and then ran up in front of the old lodges which lie in the distance, and then that formed a complete circle so that any of the visitors to the family, the Montgomery family at Lainshaw, could have a circuit around the estate, seeing all the views and no doubt being very impressed.